Okay, I believe we are live. Hello, arty peoples, and welcome to another episode of Jerry's Live. My name is Emmy Klein, and I'm your host this evening. And as you can see, we have a guest artist on, and I'm so excited to have you, Tristina, with Pebio. Welcome
Thank
to the
you.
show. So, Tristina has an amazing show planned for us today. Lots of really fun goodies and techniques to show us. Specifically going over the Colorex watercolor inks today, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
I'm very excited. It looks like a lot of fun. So Tristina has a variety of things that you're going to be using during the show. If you guys are interested in anything that Tristina's using, make sure to go to the website JerrysArtarama.com and type in today's class code. The class code is JL304, and if you type that in the search bar, the teacher's cart should come up, and everything that Tristina is using should be in there, and you guys can check it out that way. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the show off to you, and you can show us all kinds of fun things.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. Woo! Thank you. And welcome everybody again. My name is Tristina Dietz Elmes. I am a professional artist on West Florida. And yes, I had water all the way up to my doorstep last week from the storm, but fortunately it did not come in the house. And my art studio was intact. Yay. And so I am excited today to bring you Pebio's Colorex liquid watercolor paints and drawing gum masking fluid. A lot of people are already familiar with the drawing gum, but if you're not familiar with the Colorex liquid watercolor inks, that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today as well. Here in front of me are some examples. For instance, here where it says Colorex, the paint in the background is this liquid watercolor. And I love the liquid watercolors because they're so concentrated. And because they are so concentrated and the delivery system is a little dropper, you don't waste paint. You're not going to waste it. You're going to get exactly what you need when you need it. And fabulous. I can't wait. I'm getting ahead of myself, right? But
we get really excited about art supplies, don't we?
Don't we? Oh my gosh, yes. And sharing about art supplies. So the background colors here are from the liquid paint, but then also where Colorex is, that was masked off with something called drawing gum. So this is the drawing gum, the larger size of the drawing gum, and it's liquid latex. It dries and can be removed from your paper, or a lot of artists also use it on canvas, and you can use it with acrylic paints if you're putting a thin layer of acrylic paint over top of it. Just apply the drawing gum thickly and you'll be able to pull it. That's the satisfying part. If any of you have been watching my social media, then you'll know that one of my favorite things is taking the drawing gum off after it's dried. Now it does come in two forms. It comes in the liquid latex form, which really is not recommended to use around children, but there is a non-latex form for either working with children or also working with people that have sensitivity to latex. And that is our non-latex formula, which is phenomenal. The difference is the latex formula you can leave on your artwork for days and it'll still come off. This latex, the non-latex, you're going to want to work on it on your work and then take it off that day. You can always reapply it and then work again onto your artwork the next day. That's a trick that I use all the time, because once you put these masking fluids on, you can take them off. And that's what I did here, where I preserved the white of the paper where it says Colorex with the masking fluids. Now, Pebio also has the masking fluids in a pen. So you'll see here, this is the latex version of it. And this one is the non-latex version of it. Awesome. I'll tell you a little bit more about those when we come down over top of the table for you. And then you can also, for instance, in this sunflower, you can use the dip pens with the inks and do work that way. Just remember that these watercolor inks are water soluble. And so I did the sunflower outline with one of the Colorex inks using a dip pen like this. And then I had to be very careful as I was putting my paint inside those petals, because it reactivated the color that I was using on the outlines, which was fine with me because I love artwork that has a very organic look to it, as opposed to being absolutely perfect. I like the perfectly imperfect, right? Oh, and then over here is kind of a deluxe piece of artwork that you saw if you were watching the Jerry's social media. This is a piece of art that I did that incorporates the spending lots of time with these paints and also using the drawing gum. Over here is an example of where I've used the paints with white. The cool thing is that these have, the Colorex has a white. And so you can add that white to get a kind of a gouache look to your paint. And that's what I did here. You can make pastel type colors just by putting the white in with it. And that's what I did on this koi fish. Of course, I used the drawing gum to preserve my white in my fish here. And you see the shine right there? Oh my gosh.
We do.
We see the shimmer. There are two types of gold and a silver. And yes, they are watercolor. They can be reactivated with water. And so that's what this whole painting is done, using the Colorex paints and getting that shimmer. And then I love to show this piece because it's playing, but you see how watery it is, and yet there's still brilliant color in it, even when you've added a lot of water to it. So that is an overview. Now we're going to go on to the table. Oh, one more thing. Right here, this is an elephant, where I took my time and I put the elephant on using the drawing gum latex, and then put splashes of these beautiful watercolors on it, blew it with a straw so you get that really fun look like here, and took it off, and there is an elephant. It kind of emerges from your artwork. I love that about using masking fluid.
Fun.
Right? Right?
Is that also a clock? It almost looks like it could be a clock.
It could be a clock, but I did it on watercolor paper.
Okay.
There's something about the round shape that I just absolutely adore. So I love buying, especially from Jerry's. There are some variations of beautiful large round papers, and I have a bunch of those in my art drawers here that are, in process, being worked on. And so, yeah, the round size is great for that kind of thing, where you can mount it on a piece of wood and make a clock out of it. Absolutely. Now, because they are watercolors, though, if you're going to put them on a surface you need to be durable like that, you're going to need to spray them once you're done, right? Because you need to set the watercolor to make the watercolor non-resoluble, because the nice thing is they're very resoluble, and that way you can work back into your artwork. And that's why when I did this more complicated piece over here with the succulents, I was putting down color, lifting color, putting down color, lifting color, layering color, and many, many layers. And I like that the majority of the colors are transparent, except of course the whites and those metallics that I was talking about. All right, let's go to the overhead, and I'll show you some more fun things about.
Now, quick question while I am switching this over. When you say spray your artwork, you mean spray it with a varnish?
A fixative of some sort, correct.
Gotcha.
Right, okay. Right. And you can use a fixative for watercolor, and then what I like to do afterwards is use a crystal clear acrylic. Because once the color is set with a watercolor type varnish, then I go ahead and I throw on the acrylic varnish to really seal it in there. And then that's also a trick that I use if I want to do mixed media and I don't want the watercolor to come back up, then I do exactly the same thing.
Very smart. Love it.
Yeah, because I love doing the mixed media as well.
Mhm.
All right, these are our social media links. So you have Pebeo Paints on Facebook. Of course, you're here at Jerry's Live and Jerry's Artarama. Mine is Tristina Dietz Art on Facebook. And then we've got on Instagram, Pebeo has a new USA and Canada. And right in between there is a an underscore, just so you know, it's Pebeo underscore USA Canada. And then Jerry's Artarama. What's that?
I said that underscore was a little hard to see. I'm glad you pointed that out.
It was, yeah, yeah. And then Dietz Art. So I shortened it for Instagram, Dietz Art. So if you want to follow us there, please do. And then this is a history of Pebeo. Pebeo has been around for over 100 years now. They were founded in Provence, which is in France, in 1919. And a lot of people ask, what does Pebeo mean? Pebeo was actually the P, the B, and the O was the chemical formula for the white paint, which was their very first product. Their very first product in 1919, they were making white paint. And then because they're French, they threw the E and the O, the E and the E in there, right?
With a little accent.
Pebeo. Exactly. And they're international, based in France. And they currently distribute products to more than 100 countries. And if you go to pebeo.com, that is their international website. I noticed that when I go to their website, Google wants to translate the French to English because it is initially in French. But if you click near the top of the website where it says FR, a bunch of flags will come down. And if you click on the British flag, it will present the whole website in English, which is fabulous. So that's the trick for being sure that you're able to read everything in English. Unless, of course, you know French, then have at it. Right?
I'm still working on mine.
Right. I took it in high school too. It's been a long time. All right. And then this is the information about the drawing gum. So besides using it in an artwork like this, do you see how you can do writing? And that's the benefit of using these markers, is that you can do writing as well as detailed work with the markers. And then when you take it off, I just love the way that the writing looks underneath that. And then again, it shows you the large bottle and the smaller bottle in both the latex and the non-latex. Now, it does clean with water. These clean with soap and water, but you're going to notice that if you put it on a brush and you leave it for a little while, oh my gosh, like this brush is all gummed up. And so there are special tools. Jerry's has them for putting on masking fluid, or frisket, it's sometimes called as well. And Pebeo's version is called drawing gum. And you don't want to use your finest brushes for it. I keep these older kind of ratty brushes. And then so they always have, I don't worry about it. They've got the dried latex in them and they're fine. You can also use the little brushes with the, they have the silicone tip to them. Those can work as well.
Oh, yes.
Which are pretty
yes.
cool. Yeah. And then you can pick it up and then you just roll the latex or the simulation roll latex right off of it when it's dry. And then it's back to normal, like that. Okay. And then we have, the liquid watercolor. There you go. And we've got 60 colors of the liquid watercolor. 56 are transparent, and then you've got your 2 golds, a silver, and a white. There's the pipette inside to make it easy for dispersing it. It's blendable with water, rewettable. It withstands heavy dilution, it says here, and that's the concentratedness of it that I had told you about. It's a very concentrated paint, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. Now you can also apply it with a brush, a water brush, an airbrush, or a calligraphy pen and a dip pen. Now the airbrush, of course, the couple that I mentioned, the white, the metallic, and the metallics, you cannot use in the airbrush. They will clog it up, but the rest of it, it's so fine and watery. They're amazing. They are dye-based. They are not pigment-based. All right, and you can use them on watercolor paper, mixed media paper, Bristol paper, and illustration board. And then you just clean up with soap and water. This is the chart that is available with the Pebeo website so that you can see all the colors, and you see I highlight colors that I want that maybe aren't in my collection. Now, I don't know how many of you have gotten into AI recently, but there are programs that you can use to generate AI images that are not copyrightable. That is, according to the court system, 2-3 weeks ago, they came up with this AI art is not copyrightable. Awesome, because that means you and I can go out to AI and say, give me this. Give me a couple of anime kids, right? Boom. I got my anime images. So that is an AI image. It's not copyrightable until I paint it. Once I've painted it, then it becomes my copyrighted image. And there you go. And this is one of the traditional ways of using Colorex, and that is in the graphic arts. So in Europe, Pebio's Colorex is very well known for their colors for illustration and for manga purposes. They even have a set that's available on Jerry's, which is called the manga set. So a lot of the colors are colors that are often used in manga. And here I used the drawing gum for the eyes. I find it's very effective with manga eyes to use the that latex or the non-latex to preserve the white in the eyes, because right when you look at manga, there's always a lot. This is another AI image, but you see how there's the white in the eyes there. You want to preserve that white, and that's what I use the drawing gum for. And I'm going to show you how to do that shortly. But besides doing something more graphic like this, what I do with my leftover paint when I have a painting session is I throw that onto another piece of spare paper, and then it becomes work that is more abstract. So this is an abstract piece that's done with lots of color, and you've got your metallics and everything in there, and that's used with leftover paint. So that's why I say these paints will go so far for you, and yet even the paint that's left over, look at how bright the colors are. They are like, oh, right there. Love that. All right, let's talk about the general colors that I use. For the most part. And there are 60 colors. So there are a lot of what are called convenience colors, right? That's colors that are already pre-mixed for you. These are the main colors that I use. And they are my white, my black, cyan, magenta, primary yellow, and then Indian yellow, because if I want high key or cooler colors, I use the primary yellow. And if I want warmer colors, then I use the Indian yellow. That works out perfectly with these paints for color mixing. And then you can see the pale gold here. There you go. And the silver. Now, I did want to show you the lifting power, or the staining power, because just like any watercolor paint, it depends on your paper, how much sizing is in your paper, as well as the pigment that's going onto the paper, how much you're able to lift off of it. And so here the black leaves a gray. You can see quite a bit of gray there. The magenta, of course, it's a red, right? So reds stain more. The yellow comes off beautifully, the primary yellow, but the Indian yellow has that rich yellow undertone. And so it leaves a lot of staining there. And then the metallics mostly come up. They only leave a tiny bit of a stain behind. But I find that it's important to try this kind of test for yourself with your various paints that you're going to use if they're water-based, like the watercolors. Also, I like to take a little bit of just plain water and drop the little bit of water on there and see if I can get that bokeh effect. The bokeh effect is where you have just little bits that seem to have a little bit of a washed out look to them. So for instance, in the background of this Colorex, do you see the bokeh effect here where I just dropped water and then picked the water up? And then also on the leaves here for the manga, I just wanted to get a little variation in the leaves. So I dropped a little bit of water on them, and you can see that little bit of kind of that bokeh effect, but it just adds that little bit of extra, and it works perfectly with these paints. Yay. All right, now secondary colors. You're going to take your cyan, your magenta, and your primary yellow. You're going to mix those together. Look at this fiery orange. Oh, right? Beautiful. And then this really high key or high tone magenta and the primary yellow and cyan, giving you these bright greens. Now I can see from the lighting that you're not seeing it as bright as I am. Let me see if I can do that for you. But wow, let me tell you, they're very brilliant. But what if you want to knock down the color, like if you're doing a landscape of some sort, and so you want to have your brights and your muted colors? Then what I mentioned to you and showed to you earlier was using Indian yellow to get your warmer colors. So here we've got our primary yellow. And so that was this one right here, the primary yellow from Colorex. And that's what they call it, primary yellow. And then when you mix that with the red, the magenta, and you mix it with the cyan, you get these bright colors. But if you want to warm it to either drop in a shadow, or you want to, you have an area that you want to push back a little bit, you can use the Indian yellow instead, and then you get this warmer version of those two colors. This is much more olive looking. Did you have a question?
We actually have a couple. One that just came up is a great question. Can you buy the colors separately, or do you have to buy them in a set?
Excellent question. Excellent. They are all available separately. Not only are they available separately in this size, but your primary colors are also available in this size and on the Jerry's website in the 1 liter size. And why is that? That's because the folks who are graphic designers, they go through it. All right. So if you're a graphic designer and you're using color, yes, it's very concentrated. For the hobbyist, it's like, wow, a little goes a long way. But if you're somebody who's an illustrator, you're going to go through a lot of it. And so the larger sizes at an economical price are also available from Jerry's. So excellent question. Was there a second question before I go on?
Yes. Are these products artist grade?
Okay, they are artist grade. However, bear in mind that these paints, these liquid watercolors, are dye based. They are not pigment based. So because they're dye based, they do have some light fastness to them. You know, they are artist grade, so they are light fast to a degree, but they are dyes. And because they're dyes, they are going to fade over time more than something that is pigment based. And they are specifically designed, or they were originally designed for graphic designers. So that's somebody who wants a pop of color, a punch, right? When you look at this manga, boom, you've got lots of brilliant color there, okay? And you're designing it, and then you're scanning it, and then it's what? Going into a book, or you're making stickers, or you're doing something from a graphic arts standpoint that with your artwork. And that's how you preserve the artwork instead of counting on preserving it from the ink itself. Now, what I do is I like to take my artwork and spray it with a UV fixative. So there are UV fixatives that you can put on your artwork, and that will help to diminish that possibility of it fading. Now, if you're going to sell your artwork, you're going to definitely want to coat it with a UV coating. And the way I look at these paints is that they are great for doing your graphic design like this. That's going to be scanned, and then you're going to sell prints of it, not the original. The original is going to go away inside a drawer somewhere. So it doesn't get sun on it, unless you want to sell the original, in which case you're going to spray it with a watercolor fixative, you're going to spray it with an acrylic fixative, and then you're going to spray it with an acrylic UV fixative. All right. And then I also put a lot of my artwork behind museum glass. So museum glass will also cut down on the UV. That's when I'm working with my bigger pieces. All right. I hope that answered those questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
And here is, I'm adding white. So I mentioned earlier, you can get these beautiful colors that look very pastel-like, and that is simply by adding the white. So these are the effects of adding the white to your primary yellow, your Indian yellow. I like this one, looks very mustard-like. Your cyan up here, your secondary color green, your magenta, your orange that you made. The black, the ivory black turns kind of a gray, a dark gray, and then you have a sort of a dark purple. But of course, if you add more white, it's going to be even less punchy in terms of the colors. But I love how you can create all these beautiful pastels with the white. Now, one thing with the white is that when you put, because the white is fluid, when you put it over top of the other colors, it actually soaks in. It doesn't sit on top. So I'm going to show you that in a little bit when I show you about using the drawing gum. But you'll notice that it sits on top instead of, it soaks in instead of sitting on top. So if you want something to sit on top, it's okay to throw a little bit of gouache on top, and the white gouache works beautifully to sit on top of these paints. All right, here is the effects on black paper, because black paper is very popular. So you've got your white and your gold and your silver. This is it straight out of the bottle, and this is it when you've pulled it down, meaning that you've added some water to it. And then these are your two golds. So you've got a rich gold and a pale gold. You can see the rich gold is a little more yellow-like, and this pale gold tends more toward a bronze. All right. And then other colors that I like that are convenience colors right out of the bottle are the Mars orange. Look at how I call the colors punchy, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. The violet, the turquoise. I use the turquoise a lot instead of cyan for my color mixing if I want teals and that kind of thing. And then the emerald green is just very, let me see if I can get the lighting on it so you can see that. And then there's something that is called portrait pink, or it also, today it says pink beige. And that one is great for doing, if you like to do faces, like for instance with the this manga that I did, I use that in here in the face. You can see a little bit of the pink. It's kind of pinky right here. And I put it on, and then I used water and I lifted it. I put a little more on, and then I lifted it. So that's a beautiful thing. You can do that push-pull with these paints in order to lighten and darken the paints in various areas. You can see right here where it's a little bit darker. Yeah. And that's just because I kept layering it over here to give a shadow. And then here I put a lot of water and I lifted the color, but it's still left enough that you can get the dimension from it that way. All right. Now you are probably used to, with watercolors, doing things like creating fades. So this is a fade using these. You can absolutely do that by adding water and getting a nice fade out of it, especially if you're doing skies or something. You may want to be able to do that. You're going to be able to do this just like you do with regular watercolors. In addition here, then we have, who loves putting the crinkly plastic on it? So while it's wet, right? Right?
I love it.
Right. And so it does work with that technique. I wanted to be sure that you knew. They're juicy colors, and I just love it. And then of course with the salt technique, and that's what I did on this one down here. And to kind of give the soil a mottled look, I added the salt. You just want to be careful with the salt because these paints are very wet. So put the paint down, give it a few seconds to start to firm up, and then put your salt on. Because I found if you put your salt on right away, these paints, because they're already fluid in the bottle, they're so wet that they melt the salt at sometimes. So you really have to make sure that it's just damp, and then you throw your salt on there. All right, now let's take a look at, let's go with the manga here. And I'm going to talk about preserving that white in the eyes right there. And so this is a set of eyes that I started. This one has no drawing gum on it. This one has some drawing gum right here to preserve the white. This is where I painted over it, and you can still see the drawing gum there. And this is where I removed the drawing gum. So let me show you how I put that on and give you some tips on what I do when I'm using the drawing gum. Of course, you can use the drawing gum marker.
So
and
convenient.
to use, right? Yes. The trick with the drawing gum marker is you need to clean it each time you're done with it. And I'm going to show you how to do that. All right.
Yes, please.
Super important to do that, because otherwise what happens is you'll notice, just like with these brushes, how these brushes are all gummed up on the ends. The same thing happens with your pens, and there is a way to avoid that. Of course, there's a little marble in here. I hope you can hear that. And here I have some watercolor paper off to the side that I always keep. It's going to come out nice and clean like that, the tip, and it's a pump tip. So I'm just going to sit here and pump it, all right, until I get some of it coming down. Now I've got the nice thing is they put a blue coloring in it. So you can see the blue here, that kind of like a light blue. And so now it started to flow and come out. That means that if I want to be a little more precise, I can come in here and use the pen and deposit the latex just where I want it. And as I said, you can also write with it, right? So that you would be doing, that's one of the nice things about the pen is you can get the continuous flow by you push it a little bit to keep that flow going on the tip. And it is a nylon tip. And if the tip gets ruined, there's a spare tip in the top here.
Look at that. That's so smart.
So that's true of both the non-latex. There's this one. It has a little bit larger top to it here. And that's a 4 millimeter bullet tip. And then this one is a 0.7 millimeter fine tip.
That's lovely. So now I did have a question about the drawing gum while we're on it.
Yes. Sure.
Because I know it has the blue coloring, which is lovely because you can tell where it is, and that's great on a white paper.
Yes.
But does it leave any kind of color residue or anything behind after you've removed it?
Okay, excellent question. Does it leave a residue? It depends on your paper. And that's true of all masking fluids. Okay, because there are masking fluids that come in yellow, there are masking fluids that come in pink. This one comes in blue. It depends on your paper. So if you're using your student grade and up, then I've not seen it leave a color behind the drawing gum. But if you're using a cheap children's paper, which I do because I use the children's paper when I'm just swatching. So in other words, a watercolor paper that's a very low grade that you might use for your kids, right? Although when my kids were little, I let them use all the artist grade because I wanted them to feel success with art out of the gate. I didn't want them to use kids versions. I wanted them to use adult versions. Oh yes, I spoiled them. But what I found is that the lesser expensive papers have less of that sizing in it, which keeps the water and the colors sitting on top. And so it's more easily stained with your staining colors, as well as I have seen the blue residue, but I've also seen pink residue and I've seen yellow residue. So it's It's a matter of what paper are you using. I'm using a mid-grade paper here. And on the list, there is the, tell me what it is, New York Central, I think, is the name of the paper. Yes.
Yeah.
So New York Central is the paper that's on the list. It's a good, you know, artist quality, lower artist quality, not your super expensive.
It's actually,
paper.
it is 100% cotton. So
is.
It's surprisingly low price for how high of a quality it is. It's a really great paper.
Excellent. Excellent. I haven't had a chance to get my hands on it, but I want to.
I'm sending you some. Now, I do have one last question on the drawing gum. Is how long can it be left on before it is difficult to remove?
Excellent question. Okay. You can leave drawing gum on. A professional artist teacher that I know for many years, I think his name's Tom Lynch. I met him a couple of times at different shows. He said that he loves it because he can leave it on for a week and he doesn't have a problem at all removing it. Now, remember, he's working with your excellent 100% cotton, great quality paper also. And he says it's not a problem at all to leave it on for 1 to 2 weeks and take it off. And I have not had a problem either with taking it off within a week. Now, I have had a problem when I took the artwork in my car, and I live in Florida and it's super hot here. And so what happened was it got hot and it soaks into the surface of the paper and gets gummy and sticky and you can't even get it off. So don't let it get hot.
I mean, Florida heat is no joke.
Right. And you should be fine. But we're talking about the latex based, not the non-latex based. The non-latex based, I've seen after just a couple of days, it's sticking. So that's why I recommend with the non-latex base, you're taking it off within 24 hours or take it off and then reapply it, which is super easy to just reapply it. All right. So if you were going to do a new painting session the next day, I would take it off that evening before I went to bed. And then I'd put more on the next day to cover up the white that I want to protect and then keep painting. All right. So excellent questions that y'all are having. Now, with the marker, when you're done with the marker, and that's this one or this one, you want to clean the tip and you want to clean the sponge that's in there. So you're going to take the tip out and you're going to put it in some water. So I just take this, put it in a little bit of water. All right, because it is water soluble before it dries. Before it dries and gets all gummy, it's water soluble. So here I put it in some water. And then I'm going to take the marker and I'm going to take this black top off of it. And inside here is a sponge. Inside there is a little sponge. You want to do the same thing with that. You want to get that sponge, you want to get that out of the sponge, okay? So you're gonna put it in there. And what's happening is you see how the water is getting all cloudy. So that is the liquid latex or the non-latex getting in the water. Now, also right here at the top, there's gonna be a little bit of residue. So you're gonna want to take a paper towel and you're just gonna want to clean that like that. There you go. Boom. Nice. And once these are dried, so you'll set them, you'll rinse them, set them aside. Do not rinse this in your sink. Okay, this is the main thing I tell everybody about working with any of these masking fluids. Don't rinse it in your sink because you don't want it going down your sink and then getting dry in your sink, you know, in your pipes, right? No. You don't want this dry in your pipes. Ooh, right. But people don't realize it and they think, oh, it's, you know, I can just wash it up and then throw it down the sink. Don't do it. Don't do it. What I do is I take it and I pour it into my studio trash, which is full of paper towels. And then it'll just get into the paper towels. It'll dry and out it goes. That's how you clean it.
Someone else I've talked to said that they throw their like old water or their, you know, leftover whatever in kitty litter.
Oh, what a cool idea.
So
and it just soaks it right up, right?
Yes, it does. And now then it's just something you could throw away.
Right, right, right. Now, when I'm that's when I'm working with the pens, and I want to be sure that, you know, that it's all cleaned out, and that way I'll be able to use, you know, everything that's in this tube, right? Now, when it comes to working with it from the bottle like this, what I do is I I do shake it, but it's better if you do this to mix it, because then you're not making a lot of bubbles. And then I'm going to take it here, and I just use a little condiment cup like this, right? And I pour a little bit of it in the condiment cup, because you don't want to leave this open for a long period of time. What happens is it starts to get all gunky up in the area near the top where you've got a thin layer of it, and you'll notice that you're having to pull it out of there each time. But if you take it and you pour it into a little cup like this, it's a lot easier to work with just this small amount. And then this is closed back up. Now what I'm going to do here is come in, and I have one of my brushes that was all gunked up that I use just for this, just for working with masking fluid. So I'm going to put a little bit more on there, and a little bit more. And I'm going to make the large bit down here like this. Now, what if you make a mistake? Oh my gosh, Tristina, I made a mistake. Ah, the beautiful thing is you just let it dry and then you roll it right off. Mm-hmm. There are no mistakes with masking fluid. That's the beautiful thing. None. Because you just wait a second for it to dry and then you pull it right back off. Now what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna just, with this little bit, this is my working amount, and I put the lid on it and I set it aside, and then that's what I use for the next couple. I could pour it back in if I'm done, completely done, but if I had, let's say I'm going to go to lunch or I need to take the dogs for a walk, then I put that lid on it, and that preserves it, and I can use it for a couple of days that way. And then with my brush that I'm using, I'm going to wipe off the tip, and then I'm just going to let it dry and roll off whatever I can get off of the latex after, or non-latex simulation after it's dry. So that's it for using that. Now, once it's dry, you need to leave it for a few minutes. It takes about 15 minutes. Then you'll see that it's kind of like a light blue here. That's good so that you can see it. Now let's put a color in there over top of it. First, we're gonna, in this case, to build the eye, we're gonna do some of the black and then some of the blue. So what you'll notice here is that this has a dropper to it. And what's great about the dropper is I can control how much paint goes into my wells, right? I can be a little more precise with that. I like to dip my brush in water first and then get off the excess before picking up the paint. What a lot of people do is, to make this paint go further even, they'll use the droppers, which are on your list. So Pebio has these packs of plastic droppers like this. And you can use those to add water to the paint to make the paint go further and to make it flow better. So I almost always add a couple of drops or one drop of water, depending on how much I'm using. So now I'm going to continue this eyeball right over top of the, so I'm going right over the drawing up, right over top of it, just like that. And you see how the drawing gum is resisting it. Doesn't matter if some of it dries on top. And then I'm going to put a drop of cyan over here. Again, I can go with it full strength, or if I want to lighten the color a little bit, then again, I'll just put a little bit of water in with it. And that's why it's so concentrated, a little goes a long way there. That's with 2 drops of water. And then I'm going to build the eyeball here. And you know, the iris, the color around it, like that, so that I can, again, cover. I'm covering what I put down for drawing gum. So this is how I do my eyes. Now, this happened to be the black Colorex. These, where it's darker, I actually used an India ink. And the advantage of India ink is that it doesn't run. The black ink here, you're going to get a little bit of diffusion around where I put the other color. Why? Because this is black watercolor. So it will spread out, which is fine as well. It just depends on what kind of a look you want, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you also another device that I use for adding, while that dries for a minute, for adding masking fluid. And this is a masking fluid pen, or what they call a fine line applicator, which they have. I found them for the first time at Jerry's, and I was so excited because you can put all kinds of, you can put the inks in here, so you can do drawy, scribbly, dribbly stuff with it. But I also use it for masking fluid. And the nice thing with this is that it has a pin. It has a pin in the lid that goes inside the tube here. And that way I can, and I always start it on another piece of paper. Can you see the scribble lines there? Mm-hmm. And so I find that this gives me good, it's not perfect control. If I wanted perfect control, I would use a brush, but it's enough that it's a lot of fun to work with. Now I do get bubbles, and if I get a bubble, then so to close this, you're going to make sure that the pin goes back inside there, and then screw it back on, and that keeps that applicator free of the latex or even the non-latex. Super nice to use. Now, if you put too much on, it's not too much, it's never too much. But if you get kind of a blob there and you want it to dry faster, I just use the end of a paper towel and I blop it right in there like that. And it just soaks it. You can see it soaks it right up into the paper towel. And then that way it will dry faster. Yay. Now, I'm going to show you on this one because it's already dry. Here I put the white Colorex. So you can see a little bit of lines here for the iris. Mm-hmm. Not very defined because the white soaks in. This one over here, I used white gouache. So you can see the white gouache sits on top of the paint a little bit better. All right. So here I'm going to use a rubber cement eraser. So this is on the list of products. And it's as simple. I find this is better than using my finger because we have moisture in our fingers. And depending on how much moisture is in your skin, when you go to rub off the drawing gum, what can happen is that you can smudge the watercolor. And if you use this, not a regular eraser won't work, but this is a rubber cement lifter. And it's perfect for lifting it up without disturbing the watercolor underneath. So here we go, just like that. Ah, I love the reveal. The reveal is so exciting. And there you go. Now we have the two matching eyes. Love that. And after this is dry and you want to wait to be sure it's fully dry, then you're going to come in with your eraser and just lift it right up. Now, you aren't always, I mean, the nice thing is it preserves whatever color is underneath there. So if you even want to have an area with a color and then a light color, preserve that light color and then put another layer of a darker color on top, and then take off the drawing gum, it will reveal the lighter color underneath. So it's not going to lift up the lighter color. It's going to leave that paint there. It's going to preserve that paint. So feel free to use it on top of dry paint as well as using it on a just paper. All right. Woo! We are moving along. Next, I gave y'all a, well, it was posted to the Jerry's Live today, this outliner. And these are some beautiful succulents that are in my neighborhood. And then I did an AI print of some various cacti in pots, and then just got this from that. And then you can transfer it to watercolor paper by using a product that they have. I don't think we put it on the list, but it's a transfer paper from Richardson that they do have at Jerry's. And that's usually how I will transfer an outliner if I want to put it onto paper. Or of course you can hand draw it. So I hand drew this one. This was the original one that I scanned and made the outliner from. And what we have here is a combination of the drawing, some of the paint put on there, and also this is the masking fluid right here. So up here, I've got masking fluid. So at this point, I can take the masking fluid off, and then those little white spots that I created up there will appear. There you go. So the little white spots appear. I love that. And then I can go back in and put another color in that space if I want to. But I'm going to show you right now, putting a little bit of the masking fluid on this part right here, right there. Because if you look at this piece of artwork, you can see where I put the little lines on here and on here. That was all those white lines were masking fluid that I went in. Let's use this one right here, just for the speed. Let me cover that back up. And so you can use this to go in here and define, a little bubble just came out. But of course, if it's not exactly where I want it, then I can just roll it off and do it again later, right? We'll do it again, do it again. All right. So this is where I come in and I do my little lines on here to preserve the white. What I like to do with these little succulents is I like to put pink on the ends, but I don't want the pink, which is a red color, and the green to create sort of a mud. So I like to preserve these ends with the masking fluid and then come back later and drop the pink in there. So super quick and easy like that. Pink. Done. Ah, it's so fast and so easy. I just love it. Oh, okay, there we go. And that will go aside. Then I wanted to show you using these inks. As I had said, I usually just use these three, the magenta, the cyan, and the primary yellow, when I'm painting things like this, nature type things, because we already have a drop of cyan there, right? And if I add one drop of the, nope, I'm going to add 2, maybe 3 drops, and let's go 4 drops of the yellow. Then I'm going to get a brilliant green. Let me go ahead and get, this is a Princeton brush, but on the list, there's some Polar Flow, some new Polar Flow watercolor brushes available. You see how quickly I got that bright green? Let me show you. Just like that, I got a bright green, and I'm going to drop that bright green in right here. I usually start with lighter colors and then build up darker colors. As a matter of fact, on this side, because I'm going to have the sun coming in this way, I started over here with yellow and even added some gold after I built up the colors. But the nice thing about the masking fluid is it makes it a lot easier for you to quickly lay your color in and not worry about the edges there. Okay, like this. So I've got one layer down. And now I can intensify the color by adding a little, say a little bit more, ooh, let's put that there. Let's say a little bit more blue. So the color mixing with this, like I said, is very easy because you're just a drop here, a drop there, a little bit more water. I'm constantly adding a little bit of water because it's very concentrated. Now I've got a little bit darker green, and I can come in and lay that darker green in. I usually do leave it for a little while so the edges will dry, because otherwise what happens is that it'll just spread because there's a lot of water in it. Now, once you've done your colors, then and they're dry, and I've laid in multiple colors, multiple. Then I come back in and I take up the drawing gum like this. So here's the drawing gum in the dry area. And I like to put my drawing gum on so that it's very organic looking. And you'll notice here that there's a little bit of the color still showing in there. I'm fine with that, but if you want something more precise, that's where you're going to go over it with, say, a pen to be sure that you've got, you have your lines. You can run the pens down a ruler if you want to be sure that you're getting something more symmetrical. I like things that are more organic looking. Now, the next one below there is where I've already removed the various, I've removed the drawing gum. And so you see the bright white here. And now I've gone back in and you see there's some pink in here. And that's building the pink background. Let me show you the getting the orange here with the magenta. So I just put some magenta in and a bunch of yellow in. And bam, I've got an orange that's like wild, beautiful. There we go. Nice deep orange. And that orange is kind of the type that I was using in here. Now it's a little bit more brown, so I would have put just a tiny bit of that green in there. But you see how quickly you can get your color, especially if what you're doing is sketching. If you're sketching for a larger painting, this is a great way to do that, and the colors come up very quickly. Now, of course, the same concepts of neutralizing your color work here. So if I put a little bit of that orange in here, or it's like a fiery orange red, then the opposite on the color wheel is that green. So I'm going to grab some of the green, and now I've got a brown, just like that. Bam! I got my brown to drop in my shadows. It's so, y'all, this is so fast and so easy to do. There you go, just like that. Now, what I'm doing here is, the reason that I preserve those white areas is I want to go back and put those little spines, right? Cacti have those nasty little spines that you have to be careful of. So I just use a smaller brush, and here I'm going to go with a magenta. And if there are any questions about color mixing, let me know and I'll be happy to show you, because you can see how quickly you can mix up colors here. But I've got a small brush here, and I want to put those little spines on here. So everything's dry now. It's all dry. But I've got this lighter color of pink in the background, and now I'm going to add the little spines.
Now, I have a question about color mixing, specifically with the gold.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Can you mix the gold with other colors and have like a tinted, sparkly color?
Yeah, let's try to mix like a bronze, where normally you would put blue and green in with it, right? Let's do it. Now, I'm glad you asked me that, because it's very important when you're working with the metallics. They have mica in them, and the mica falls to the bottom. So you do have to mix them prior to using them. And there we go.
Is it
so what I do
to mix them, or is it best to shake them?
It's because they have mica in them. No paints with mica are good for shaking unless they're like a mist kind of thing, where there's a lot of water and a little bit of very light mica. but these have a heavy mica combination in them. So you're going to need to mix this. I'm using the back end of a brush to mix it with. There we go. And this one's beginning to get a little bit dry because I've been using it for a long time. So you can even like rehydrate it by adding a little bit of water to it, which is great, right? With a true watercolor in the metallics. So let's take some of this metallic here. Let me grab another one of my brushes. Let's take this one. And I'm going to put some of the metallic in here, right on my palette. And then I'm going to add some of this blue-green color to it because that kind of gives you a bronze, right?
Oh yeah, I am so excited about this.
So I'm having to add a lot of the blue-green. Let's put a little bit of brown in there just to make it a little richer. What the heck? I'm a crazy color mixer. I mean, I'm like, oh, a little of this, a little of that, little of this, little of that. And what I just did was I just darkened it. So I took the gold and I darkened the color, and I'm adding that green in there because bronze has a green undertone, a greeny blue undertone. And how did I get the green? I mixed the cyan and the yellow. But like I said earlier, I love to use the turquoise color as my cyan mixing color often. And there's also a Turkish red, which is beautiful for when you want the warmer mixes of your colors, to use those. But yes, so I just mixed up a bronze right in front of you, right there. With the colors.
Really fun color.
Right?
Oh.
No, I use bronze a lot. But I mix it. I just mix it. Now, let me just show you real quick the portrait, what I was talking about with the portrait colors. I want to be sure that I know that we're done, but
we're getting to about that time.
Right. So I'm going to give you just a little bit more with the portraits, because there is the pink beige, what's called pink beige. So let me just get you some of that on that color right here. So this is the pink beige right out of the bottle. Now, the more water you put in it, the pinker it gets. Okay, the undertone of it is very pink. That's what I used on my manga, and that's straight out of the bottle. But if you want to get shadows, or if you want to darken the color for portraiture, my favorite colors are tobacco and sepia. So the tobacco is kind of a dirty brown, and it's perfect for getting shadows by mixing it together with that. So there you've got a beautiful shadow in that same similar tone. And the same thing again, if you want like stunning, translucent, dark chocolate skin tones, use the sepia together with the beige pink. Oh my gosh, it looks amazing. And we'll get this incredible, like, just watch, like this chocolate. Oh, you just want to eat it, right? But the trick is using that pink beige. The pink beige, if you do anything with portraiture, you're going to want that pink beige, and then mix it with those, like I said, the tobacco or the sepia, and it's just going to open up a whole new world for you with doing portraits. So I hope that, were there any last second questions?
I think we covered most of the ones that were applicable to our show today. I know that there are a few more questions that we did technically miss, but they're a little off topic, and we'll definitely go back through the comments and answer them in writing. So, even if we did miss it, we can definitely go back and make sure that we get to those.
Okay, great. So did you want to bring us back on screen together to say our goodbyes?
Yes,
or
let me do that right now. All right. Add myself back into, there we go. Hi. All right, everybody. Tristina, thank you so much for that demo. That was really cool to watch. I am so excited to go play with these as soon as I can.
Yes, you bet.
We love watercolors here. So everybody, again, if you are interested in anything that Tristina was showing us during the show, make sure to go to the website, JerrysArtarama.com, and type in the class code JL304. And that will pull up the teacher's card, and everything that she's been showing us will show up, and you can check it out that way. And that was an amazing demo. Really, really, absolutely
I appreciate
fantastic.
All the questions, and thank you so much for being an amazing host.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's always appreciated. And of course, everybody watching, if you guys are going to join us next week, you should, because we are going to have an intro to illustration class with Mott. And I am very excited about this. I've been seeing the paintings that have been happening, and I'm telling you, it's going to be so good. So make sure to join us then, and we will see you guys next week. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.